Joining us now is an expert on Russia, Dmitri Alperovitch. He's the chairman of Silverado Policy Accelerator and the author of the book World on the Brink: How America Can Beat China in the Race for the 21st Century. Dmitri, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. President Zelensky said in the last hour that Ukraine's relationship with the U.S. will continue, that he hopes to sign that minerals deal. I want to play a clip, though, from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who was at that Oval Office meeting when he was asked about that earlier today.
I don't know what President Zelensky was thinking. We had President of France, Emmanuel Macron, in on Monday. Great meeting. We had Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Thursday. Fantastic meeting. They were all on board the arc of the peace agreement. All President Zelensky had to do was come in and sign this economic agreement and, again, show no daylight between Ukrainian people and the American people, and he chose to blow that up.
So the deal is no longer on the table, just to be abundantly clear.
Not at present.
So, Dmitri, how does Zelensky salvage this relationship? Where do we go from here?
Well, I'm not sure it is salvageable, but I actually don't know that it needs to be salvaged for Ukraine to continue in this fight. This is now very clear that Donald Trump is not interested in supporting Ukraine, is not interested in giving aid to Ukraine, is not interested in providing security guarantees to Ukraine. He's made that very clear over the course of the campaign, of course, even before he went into office. It's now perfectly clear, I think, to almost everyone that that is his position. So it's really up to the Europeans now to step up and realize that if Ukraine is going to keep on fighting Russia, if it's going to have any chance of having a durable peace that is secured against future Russian invasion, it needs to be accomplished with European support.
And you mentioned the Europeans were watching video from the summit earlier today. I'm curious about your view on on this realignment, on this fact that all these Western democratic leaders are there together. The U.S. is not present there or being represented. Do you think that realignment is temporary in this particular case? Do you think that is indicative of a more permanent realignment that we might see?
Well, it's hard to predict the future, but look, I'm fairly certain that the White House doesn't actually mind this. They've been very open that they want the Europeans to take care of the security on their continent. They want the Europeans to handle this Ukraine conflict. So the fact that they're getting together and trying to amp up aid to Ukraine, spend their own money, I think would be welcome news to Donald Trump. So, whether it becomes permanent or not is going to be up to him, whether he wants to re-engage with Europe at some point in the future. I think that probably will be welcome because the Europeans still hold out hope that the Americans will participate in some form or fashion in this project, but it's really up to the White House to decide that.
And this summit was focused on several goals, one of which was the guaranteed security for Ukraine. What types of security guarantees do you think need to be in place if Ukraine is to see security, lasting peace with Russia?
Jessica, this is the most interesting aspect of this because it feels like we're looking through the looking glass and have been for the last 3 years since the beginning of this war, because the reality is that there are no security guarantees that anyone in the West is willing to provide to Ukraine that are worth anything in terms of deterring this invasion from Russia. Donald Trump is not willing to provide them. Joe Biden wasn't going to provide them. And the Europeans aren't willing to provide them in terms of putting troops on the ground that are combat troops willing to fight Russia should Russia attempt to invade again. No one is willing to do that. I don't think anyone is willing to do that now. I don't think they'll be willing to do that in the future. So the only way that Ukraine can get a just peace is by winning this conflict and making sure that Russia never again wants to try to invade it.
And of course, nothing happens in a vacuum. China is watching all of this unfold quite closely. What do you think they're making of this?
Well, I think they're loving the fact that there's a rift between these countries in NATO, between the United States and other members of NATO, certainly in Europe. They see an opportunity to interject and to try to improve their relationship, particularly with Europeans. I was at the Munich Security Conference a couple of weeks ago where the Chinese, their foreign minister, was jumping in at the chance to try to improve the relationship. I was also in Taiwan just last week meeting with their leadership, and I can tell you that they're also very nervous about the increasing military exercises that the Chinese are conducting around their borders, around their seas, and they're very worried about whether America would come to their aid.
And so knowing all of that, going back to Russia and Ukraine, how does Russia come out of all of this? And how concerned do you think the world should be for an emboldened Putin if that is the outcome of this?
Well, certainly if Russia is able to win this conflict, now they can't militarily occupy all of Ukraine. They don't have the offensive capacity for that. They can't even take these small towns like Pokrovsk and Toretsk in eastern Ukraine, even though they've been trying to take it for months. But if they can get a peace deal done that not only gives them more territory, because they're not just demanding the territory they've already captured, they want all the 4 regions that they've annexed, even those that are currently occupied by Ukraine. They're, of course, part of their territory. And they want political reforms in Ukraine. Putin made it clear this past week that he doesn't want to see Zelensky in charge post this conflict. And that probably means that he wants someone who is more pliable, a puppet perhaps, that he can put in Kiev. So if he comes out of this with a victory, I think it spells really severe security problems for much of Eastern Europe, for the Baltic states, for Poland, for Slovakia, and others.
All right, Dmitri Alperovitch, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.